way. But thank you very much to Ralph Williams and our panelists, not just for helping us get the Magic City Classic tickets, but for being here today. This is one of the most important and most fun events, not just in Birmingham, but in Alabama every year. So I'm excited to learn about it. And so I'd like to now introduce Kewanians and guests who are part of today's exciting event, the Magic City Classic panel. Please stand when I say your name and remain standing until everyone is introduced. Kiwanis Club board member and CEO of Prism, Martha Underwood. Thank you so much for that prayer and for leading us in the pledge. Kiwanis Club secretary and founder and CEO of Tessa Commercial Real Estate, Meredith Calhoun. Kiwanis Club programs co-chair and moderator of today's Magic City Classic panel, Sista Golf's own Shella Sella. Shella, will you please introduce our panel participants, and can I get a round of applause for our head table? You can come up. Yeah, you come up here,
Okay.
and then you introduce them, and then they come up.
Okay.
However you want to do it. I'm just going to kill time.
Okay.
We didn't, the logistics, we could work on the logistics, I think. I'm not doing a good job of that. All right. Shella Silla, everybody.
Okay.
So joining me on the panel this morning, we have Ralph Williams with Alabama Power, Bakari Miller with EDPA, and Perrin King with Bruno Events Team.
I think I'm doing this right.
All right, so gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
It's my honor to discuss the longstanding tradition of the Magic City Classic with you all this morning, and particularly with me not being from Birmingham. The closest thing that I ever came to a classic was Florida A&M's homecoming. And ever since I moved here in 2013, I started attending the classic, and let me tell you that the homecoming didn't even compare. So and since that moment, I have attended every classic since. So personally, outside of the fun parties, the networking and the connections that take place during Classic Week are second to none. So on that note, I'm so excited to dive into what I'm sure is just going to be a rich discussion on the positively impactful things that take place during Classic Week. And I want to hear you guys' distinct perspectives on what Classic means and what it brings to the city. So what I'd like to do is start with each of you giving a brief introduction of yourselves and the roles you play in your respective organizations, and then we'll dive into our conversation.
My name is Ralph Williams, Jr. I am the area manager for Alabama Power Company's Birmingham division. We have 6 divisions across the state. Birmingham is the largest, and I'm happy to be here today amongst friends. Proud alum of Alabama A&M as well.
Okay. I would emphasize the friends part. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bakari Miller. I'm Vice President of Business Development with the Economic Development Partnership of Alabama, EDPA. Happy to be here. And when you hear my conversation today or my comments, they're going to be centered around economic development and how that pairs and marries with events that we have, it not only in this city, but this entire state, and the benefits of those events and how we look at it from an economic development standpoint.
Well, it's a tough act to follow, so I'll do my very best. I'm Perrin King. I'm the executive director of the McDonald's Magic City Classic presented by Coca-Cola. This great event definitely needs more forums like this to be able to discuss what it is, why it is, and how it all happens. So very excited to be here. In my role and with my team, we do everything soup to nuts to be able to make sure that this magnificent event in a year-round phase, because again, everybody feels, it's classic season in October. It really never turns off and never stops, because you think about the contributions that are made by these 2 HBCU owners to be able to help populate our leadership here in the city, in the state of Alabama, and in the country. So we never turn that beacon light off to be able to amplify what it is they do and to make sure that we are achieving type of visibility, continue to give them the type of recruitment lift that they need, and also the economic windfall that the schools richly deserve and the support. So as you can see, I can go on for quite a while about this magnificent event and these two HBCU owners that own it, which are Alabama State and Alabama A&M. So thank you again for having us.
Actually, Karen, there was the perfect segue, and I'm going to kick it back to you and
Okay.
ask you to sort of tell us, for those of us who are unfamiliar with what the Magic City Classic actually is, what it comprises of, and how long it has been going on. If you can give us a brief history and overview of the Classic itself.
Now you heard she said brief, right? So okay, so that was a context note there to tell me to just kind of, but no. So when you think about the McDonald's Magic City Classic presented by Coca-Cola, you have to connect to this part, the lineage. So if you think about 81 years, this is the 81st time that these two particular schools that have owned this event the entire time are doing this in Birmingham, Alabama. And again, I look about this crowd and, they're just, it's so good to see so many faces that are friends and new friends to become. But I say this to one and all to make sure that they hear it loudly. There are some extremely unpopular times for these two HBCU owners to play an event in Birmingham, Alabama, inside Allegiant Field, but they persisted. The event has continued to go and grow. The windfalls are starting to come in place more now, but there's definitely more friendships, more relationships. These two schools in this great event, you think about Wednesday is when everybody sets up. So a Saturday 2:30 kickoff has a Wednesday procession that starts to grow. And then by the time we kick off at 2:34 p.m., at that point, you probably roughly have 125,000 people, 6 blocks that make up Legion Field. 60,000 plus are inside of the bowl of Legion Field. So when you think about why does this matter? Is this a big deal? Absolutely is. You take this away from the state of Alabama, it feels the economic impact going. And I don't want to steal any of Bakari's thunder, but you think about there's an estimated $23 million worth of direct economic impact that comes into here. A lot of you folks out here are supporters and friends, or could be, or need to be. So definitely see me before we leave today. But yeah, so you think about the importance here and that lineage and being able to go back to educate, empower, and make capital improvements on both of these campuses where a lot of the alums end up calling Birmingham home. Huge importance of what this event does the last Saturday in October every year here.
Fantastic. I'm going to move to you, Ralph. We know that Alabama Power has long been a key supporter in the Classic. So how long has Alabama Power been supporting, and why does Alabama Power feel it's important to continue to support the Classic?
So I had to do some research on this question.
Okay.
So we have directly supported the Classic for over 30 years, a little bit over maybe 32 years or something like that. Was the first time the company had a coordinated effort in buying tickets and some sort of community engagement. Of course, as parent knows, the last 10 years, it's been rebranded and just, become the Super Bowl of HBCU Classics. It's really grown beyond the two schools, and it's really about the culture of HBCUs, and it's ingrained in the fabric of the state and in the city of Birmingham. So we're about 30 years in now. The Classic for us is essentially a part of our community engagement strategy. We could not be the company we are without the students from the schools. We hire engineers from Alabama A&M, from Tuskegee, from Alabama State, from every HBCU, but A&M is probably the largest group of engineers from a particular school, probably second to Auburn. But when you talk about engineers of color, the majority of them come from Alabama A&M. So this game is more than just a football game. It's a part of our company's DNA. Every year we prepare for it. We budget for it. We engage the community around this event. And there's no way our customers would support the level of activity around the game if we were not supporting the schools. And that is to parents' point, that's a year-round effort. I mean, we support the schools first. And the game just happens to be, something festive that we get to celebrate that partnership that we've had for a long time.
Fantastic. Bakari, so for many of the Birmingham businesses, Magic City Classic is like Christmas because they get the lion's share of their revenue during Classic Week. So can you speak to, how much economic impact the Classic brings to the city of Birmingham, and then piggyback on that if you like?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, somewhere between the number of 23 to 26 million is coming into the city and the surrounding areas for the during the Magic City Classic. That's a big deal. I think that's second to the Honda Indy Grand Prix that happens every year. That's a big deal. And so we talk about those numbers, what's actually happening with those numbers? Are roads being fixed, in the city? Is infrastructure happening in the city to help businesses, want to be able to come and locate in the city? You think about those tax revenues that's happening, but I want to take a step back and think about it again from an economic development standpoint. And it's really to Ralph's point and Perrin's point, if you kind of marry those together. And I'll be honest with you, my first experience with HBCU football was the Magic City Classic. I'm not from Alabama. Anybody that knows me knows my story. I was born in South Carolina, moved around a little bit after that, got to Birmingham in August of '87 because my dad was appointed the park director of Birmingham, first Black park director ever of Birmingham in 1987. I was able to go to, and his office was at Legion Field. So I got to go to Alabama games. Great. It was fantastic when Alabama used to play at Legion Field. I remember those days. I was there when, what was his name? Not Antonio Lang. Yeah, who went us up to that ball?
Langham.
Antonio Lang. I'm obviously not an Alabama fan. I'm a South Carolina fan. I'm used to getting my heart broken every year, so just let it happen. But the Magic City Classic came, and that was my first introduction to HBCUs and HBCU football, and I was blown away, especially being in the parking lot and tailgating and things of that nature. And it's one thing to see that amount of people here, but what happens? Those individuals are, and I'm getting to a point, those individuals they purchase campers, right? They're buying food, they're using gas, they're staying in hotels, all those type things happen. And the city of Birmingham and surrounding areas are able to receive the benefits of that. Now, the other party is, well, you have somebody that's parking a camper at Legion Field that they bought and purchased. Those things aren't cheap. I mean, what are they running now? $100,000 plus, and they're buying them, right? Well, what does that person do to be able to afford something like that? Are they an executive somewhere? Are they retired? Are they still working? And so the initiatives that we have now within EDPA are centered around trying to focus on some of these executives that attended at Alabama College and University, specifically in this instance, the Magic City Classic and Alabama A&M and Alabama State. And where are these executives sitting right now? The ones that have kind of moved away, love Alabama State, love Alabama A&M. They're great alums. They may even, a lot of them are investing with the college now in the form of advancement. Say, okay, so if you're doing that, you have that tie and you may be here already. What are you doing? Do you work for a manufacturer? Do you work for a company that we want to try to target for operations or expansion inside the state? And we want to be, while you're here, if you're not coming, we want to invite you. But while you're here, we want to host you and tell you a little bit about what's going on in Birmingham and some of the things that you and your company that you're an executive of can take advantage of. We can talk to you about workforce. We can talk to you about all those things, the talent that's here, and be able to use and leverage an event like the Magic City Classic as a means of economic development. Does that make sense? And so as we're going through this process, our lens is from economic development. How can we make sure, we have a good time, we're showing this great event and able to provide this great event, but how can we leverage this event to be able to expand operations or bring new operations into the state, but specifically the Birmingham area. So that's the lens that we look at it through. And you're talking about 100,000+ people that are coming in that wouldn't be spending money or the amount of money that they're spending otherwise, and that's an opportunity. And they're executives with companies, Fortune 500 companies that are influential positions that can help potentially bring business to the state. It's a big deal. That answer your question?
That was great.
Okay.
And specifically, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about an initiative that I know that you guys over at EDPA are working on, and that's the CEO program.
Mhm.
And I know you've done it. Have you done that with Morrison Tuskegee Classic? Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, and I'll go through this very quickly because I get fired if I didn't. Greg Barker is my boss, head of EDPA. We essentially have 5 pillars in EDPA. One is lead generation. That's there. I'm in business development, lead generation, trying to bring and recruit businesses to the state of Alabama. And then you talk about innovation and entrepreneurship. We help to fund companies that are seed and concept stage to help them grow. We have a talent and retention area as well. And then business intelligence. And then we help to develop policy around the state as it has to do with economic development. Within those 5 pillars, we have specific initiatives that are targeted towards HBCUs in minority communities. And so one of the things that we've done specifically was with Tuskegee and Morehouse Classic that happened a few weeks ago. And one of the things we had partners, obviously with Prosper in Alabama Power and other individuals, other organizations said, okay, how can we target individuals, alumni from these schools that love their university, that have a tie to these schools, in some situations are from Alabama, that are in influential positions and CEOs of companies or executives of companies, to be able to say, hey, look, come back home. We want you to, if you hadn't been here in a while, I want you to kick the tires a little bit, see what's going on in the state, see what's going on in Birmingham. And the feedback, so we were able to host around 7 to 8 executives from around the country, as far away from Detroit, New York, that were alums of I said Tuskegee Morehouse in Spelman. And for those that you all that don't know, Spelman is essentially a sister school of Morehouse in Atlanta. So
They wouldn't say that.
Huh?
They wouldn't say they're a sister school.
Yeah, get me in trouble. But essentially, they have a tie to Morehouse, and so we were looking at executives from all 3 of those schools, invited them to come to Birmingham during the Classic. We talked to them about economic development opportunities and things that are happening specifically within the state and within the city, and we're developing and nurturing relationships with them, along with Birmingham Business Alliance and others, to say, look, this is what's going on right now. Have you thought about some potential new operations? Have you thought about some partnerships you could have with these universities in state, specifically to help around attracting talent back to the state, but also setting up new operations or expanding operations that you already have in the state. And we're doing that with other institutions as well. So we're not just limiting it to HBCUs. We have a partnership, started a partnership with UAB, Alabama, Auburn. Actually have a project that hopefully, I can't tell you too much, but that hopefully we'll announce within the next few months. That's out of the UK, and that all started from an idea and a strategy around alumni that are from in Alabama, that attended at Alabama College or University, that's in an executive position, an influential position, that we could make a business case for to come to the state and set up new operations. And that's just from that one initiative. So,
Wow, all very exciting.
Yeah.
So Ralph, Bakari had mentioned infrastructure. Are there any specific initiatives that Alabama Power is undertaking as it relates to infrastructure that has come specifically out of all of the attendees we get coming for Classic?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a very robust and thoughtful HBCU strategy that's not just about the Classic. It's about the core mission of the schools, not just Alabama A&M and Alabama State, but every HBCU. In fact, Southern Company has the Propel Center, which is going to be a state-of-the-art, or is a state-of-the-art initiative to recruit, train, and promote HBCU graduates in the field of technology in partnership with Apple. Ed Farm here in Birmingham, JW runs Prosper, which is heavily involved in the Classic and also working with the university presidents. But for us, as I mentioned a little earlier, we think of these 2 universities as partners. And a lot of what we've done has been trying to figure out how we can be helpful in the core, some of the core initiatives and programs that the universities have. And the journey has just led us into some really cool ideas and things that we work on at Alabama Power Company. So for instance, Mayor Woodfin, when he came into office, had a big problem with what we would call the lack of light equity. And so some neighborhoods and communities were well lit. Some neighborhoods and communities had well lit parks, others didn't. We have an Alabama A&M graduate on my team, one of my teammates at Alabama Power Company, Monica McShann, who's here with Dr. McShann, is on our team at Alabama. So what we did with the Woodfin administration was partner, and now we have a comprehensive park lighting program led by a graduate of Alabama A&M University. And so it's kind of hard to delineate between the universities, their universe of graduates and alum that work in the company and core infrastructure projects at our company, because they are the technical talent. So when you look at the grid, when you look at the lighting grid, they're alum from Alabama State, from Alabama A&M, from every HBCU that are a part of our core business. Something I wanted to touch on also that Bakari brought up. You mentioned your first classic. My first classic was somewhere around 1978. And Dr. Hood will appreciate this. My Little League team, we won the championship, which was called the Sugar Bear Bowl. Okay. Right. Where do you play the Sugar Bear Bowl? At Legion Field. Okay. And we got to ride in the Classic Parade, which was the biggest thing that ever happened in my life. To this day, probably. But I mention that because Dr. Hood and I had the pleasure of working with some young folks out of DC at the Congressional Black Caucus. We met these guys probably 5 years ago, and we ended up working on this project called The Magic in the Classic is in the People. And it was a wonderful way for us to take a step back and not look at the Classic as just a sporting event, but really the sphere of influence that the supporters of the Classic have in our community. And no matter, as Perrin mentioned, we've had some turbulent times in our city and in our state, but 81 years, and people always found a way to find the magic. And it really speaks to the character of the city. We are a very resilient city. And I think the Classic is just a demonstration of that resiliency and how people have always sort of felt optimistic and hopeful. And the Classic has been one of those times. It's a perfect time of year. It's right before the holidays. It's a great time. The weather starts to break and people are outside. And no matter what has happened in the state for at least 81 years, people have found a way to find that magic. And the Magic City Classic is just one example of magic that's demonstrated on a day-to-day basis in and around the city of Birmingham, but also with every HBCU around the country. This is just one of probably 10 big classics like this.
Yeah, this is the number one. So just figure full disclosure that this is the largest HBCU classic in the United States. And, just to kind of take it from here and stay on subject, there's some fantastic things that I heard these gentlemen say, and I'll just echo a couple things and then we can get back on track. I heard, and not in these words, I heard connect, capture, convert of top talent. Well, the McDonald's Magic City Classic presented by Coca-Cola enables our economic development friends to be able to do that because we roughly bring in 75% of the continental US states are represented. We sell on an average in advance of the actual event, 34 to 36 states. 34 to 36 states buy tickets to support this classic, this particular event. So all of the conversion things that we're trying to do and all these different programs are enabled by us having this extra holiday that we have here and get to enjoy. So that's what really good looks like. And to be able to think about having a parade that that your team has been able to participate in for years now, Ralph. We reach almost 250,000 people that are consuming this either in person, on social media, or statewide through the Great Broadcasting Network via our friends at WBRC Fox 6. So you think about everyone from the coast to the mountains are hearing what we're doing here. So it's another thing for Birmingham to continue to be able to poke our chest out about and to be extremely proud of what we're doing as a community and where we are going. not where we've been. Everybody knows where we've been, but look at where we're at right now. Look at this room. Look at this type of event. Look at other events that have been able to be piggyback and referenced off of this great event to say, yes, we can do that in Birmingham, and you should be able to come and help us join this great story. I mean, amazing run that we're on.
Can I say something since Perrin got us off subject?
Go ahead.
Because he's being very modest. The past at least 10 years, maybe 8 to 10 years, the rebranding of the Magic City Classic a lot has happened in our city in the last 8 to 10 years. And you can make the argument that the Magic City Classic, the rebranding of the Classic, has put our city in a competitive posture for larger events, in particular sporting events. And the work that Perrin has done with Bruno Event Team and partnering with the city has been phenomenal. We would not be able to recruit industry, recruit talent. I mean, this is one of the premier events that our executive team participates, we entertain customers, and we treat it like a bowl game. We treat it no different than we treat, any major bowl game that any school from the state makes it to. It's only because somebody had the vision in partnership with us. I mean, it was an easy partnership for us and every other corporation, but the rebranding of it, when it was not as popular, HBCUs have, we're not in the news as much as they are now. But I wanted to mention that because, Perrin has done a heck of a job of leading that effort in partnership with Mayor Woodfin and his team. But things just don't happen by accident. And I just wanted to bring that up while he had us off subject.
And can I speak to that? Can I speak to that too? Because one of the things, and I remember vividly, because again, this time of year now, it's classic and dressing up, going to all these parties. About a week and a half, I didn't really see my dad because he was getting ready for the Magic City Classic. He was at Legion Field at 3 o'clock in the morning when the RVs were lining up
That part.
Tuesday morning, right? And getting fielding calls and people wanting to reserve spots and my dad having to, helping to direct that whole thing. But it's because it's grown. And it's because people were, they used to try to come day of and and now they're like, no, I'm coming as early. And there's a line, whether it be down Graymont or a little bit from Legion Field, of people trying to get in because it's more popular now. And just wait, you got another classic that's going to start next year as well. That's going to be in Birmingham for the next 3 years, and it's all because they've seen the popularity and how the city of Birmingham and surrounding areas support a classic like the Magic City Classic. That's more dollars coming into the area. That's more opportunities. That's more tax dollars spent in this area. That's ultimately going to help all of us and be able to show off our state and our city specifically to be able to move to the next opportunity. And so if you haven't heard about what's happening next year, there's a coach over in Jackson, Mississippi that is going to be coming. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Good to see you, Jerry.
Yeah. Name is Deion Sanders, and they're going to have a class here next year and for the next 3 years. Just imagine the kind of notoriety, popularity that kind of event is going to have. And they wanted to do it in Birmingham. A lot of it had to do with the way they've handled the Magic City Classic and promoted it to what it is today. There were a lot of headaches, specifically in my household, but it was good headaches and welcome headaches because we knew of the opportunities and opportunities it was going to bring to this area.
That is all super exciting. But since we're talking about parties, and since Bruno Events Team is responsible for hosting and producing the game and a lot of its accompanying events, what I want to know is, Perrin, where's the best party? Where I need to be at? And I know Ralph is going to say Alabama Power. But no. On a serious note, Classic is in its 81st year and has been an epic yet friendly rivalry between ASU and Alabama A&M. And for a long time, it had been run entirely by those schools. And now it's run entirely by Bruno Events Team. When did you guys take over and how did that come about?
I'm going to clarify one that the best party is inside of Legion Field. It starts at 2:30 p.m. October the 29th. There are 2 fantastic bands that you can only see inside of Legion Field, October the 29th. There's going to be a post-game concert by Big Boy, one half of the power duo Outkast, inside of Legion Field. So the party's there. But to get back on, I will clarify, takeover is definitely probably not the case. I would say partner is really the more applicable term here, because again, State and A&M, affectionately known, have owned this event now for that 81 years. So we want, if you don't remember anything, please remember that 81 years that an entity has existed that was owned by the schools that actually do it. This is not a promoter-driven relationship. That model would fail. There was more promoter-driven, too many hands in the pot. That would have been circa 99, when John Knight, and again, folks, if you don't know who John Knight is, please look him up. John Knight is a great American and then excellent Alabamian, huddled with trustees from both universities, said, wait, there's got to be a better way. There's no way that you can look around and do a 360 and see a crowd like that and see a bag like that to go with what the kids would say. That just didn't equate. It just didn't add up. So he reached out to our team at that time with Gene Hallman and just said, hey, take a look at it. What do you think? How can you guys help? Fast forward to 23 years later, when we talk about that bag that's that small, it's a heck of a lot bigger, but it's great partnerships like folks that are sitting here. They're great partnerships like people that are sitting out there now. But you talk about the magic of the Classics, absolutely the people. So when we talk about that 34, 36 states, and what our team does via the Alabama Sports Council, which exclusively partners with the Bruno event team to be able to put on an event like this. So we just get very intentional and make sure that we are driving traffic and doing the right things. And again, ultimately with the school's money, because again, they own every expense, every revenue piece of it, of what that looks like. So our group basically just minds the money like we would mind our own personal budgets, make sure that we're doing the right things. Again, talk about being great stewards of their time. We make it a very turnkey experience for these two HBCUs, because again, their core business is educating the youth and leadership of tomorrow, not having to manage event schedules, parties, coordinating with traffic, talking to Legion Field, talk about your father. Yeah, that's a real life thing. Because my kids kind of wanted the same thing. Does anybody see Dad today? And what's what one of my daughters jokes about, like during the week, she said, turn on the TV. You'll see him running somewhere doing something. But it's a labor of love. These two schools are worth it and absolutely deserve your time, attention, and any resources that you have. Please reach out to me, reach out to our team. Last thing I'll say with this, I promise, is that get to know your Classic. State A&M own it. Birmingham has housed this event for 81 plus years. And actually 1924 was the first one that was ever played. So you think about, we'll have an extra little celebration to say it's the 100th time that we've done this in a couple of years. Yeah, 81 is continuous. There were battles and stuff like that that kind of took people away during certain times of our country. But yeah, get to know your Classic. It is yours. We want you out there. We want you to participate in it. If you can't personally come, buy tickets. Send some students, find some great groups that can come out there and experience on your behalf. But please, if you have the opportunity, come with them. Come check on your class, and we'd love to see you again this year.
Awesome. So Bakari, this one is for you. A recent article put out by the mayor's office stated that events of the Classics are vital to Birmingham's social fabric, and some families wouldn't even dream of missing the Classic anymore, that they would sit out of Thanksgiving dinner. So on a personal note, what does Classic mean to you? And then I'd like to hear that from each of you.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have a different perspective up until, I guess my dad retired almost a decade ago from the city. Maybe that's why he retired. He started to get so big, he was like, I don't want this headache anymore. But I remember, I'm a product of HBCU. I went to Stillman College. Also, my freshman, I went to Florida A&M. I transferred to Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, small HBCU. My mom and dad, product of an HBCU. Went to Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. My sisters went to an HBCU, Florida A&M, Tallahassee. I was able to experience a little bit of an HBCU experience from them talking about it, but I never understood what it really meant until I experienced the Magic City Classic. And Parents Point is the largest. And some people think, oh no, the Georgia Florida is the largest cocktail. Magic City Classic is the largest. You have just as many people outside Legion Field. No, you have more people, almost double outside Legion Field. No intentions of going to the game. They're gonna have a good time, have a great family reunion with a lot of people that you have inside the stadium. That's because they can't fit in there, right? And to be able to see the individuals and the pride that they have at their institution, from their institution, specifically with Alabama State and Alabama, into Ralph's point, it's bigger than Alabama State and Alabama A&M. It's almost, we don't have a football team at Stillman. I'm going to the Magic City Classic. I'm cheering for one of them, right? That's our homecoming, if you will. And the experience to be able to be there and be around the people. And some of the times I'd go up, I remember going with friends, and we just be walking through the parking lot where they're tailgating. Oh, come on, they don't even know who I am. Hey, come on here. Hey, you want something to eat? You want a beer? You want? And it's a situation. They didn't even know who I was, but it was a welcoming atmosphere. Say, hey, listen, we're here together to celebrate, this opportunity and celebrate and fellowship with this great event. Your family, and I don't know how much you would get that somewhere else. And with that, again, with HBCUs, I was told I was competent. I was told I was smart. I was told you're just as valuable as any other individuals that you go out there, and when you're interning, this is home, but we're going to tell you how smart and capable you are. And I think that's what you get when you see that love at an event like the Magic City Classic and the parties that go along with it. But also taking a step back and looking at it again from a lens of economic development, it's opportunities. It's an event we can leverage because it's so large and because it's so well known. And as people come that have never visited before, that's why I have relatives in Detroit that end up going out. They attended. We invited them one time to come to the Magic City Classic. I'm hooked. It's either Alabama A&M or Alabama State. Those type of things happen with an event like the Magic City Classic. So again, for a period of time, I was like, gosh, it seemed like a big deal, and Dad's stressed during this time. But when I was able to look at it from a different lens, one of the reasons why he had so many headaches because he wanted it to be a great event and he wanted everybody to have a great experience. And so those were a lot of my memories of the Magic City Classic, and look to have many more.
Wonderful. Ralph?
Similar to Bakar's story and a lot of other folks' story here today. I mentioned in 1978, I was sure I was going to the NFL. And so football and the Classic, that just all, was part of what I thought I was going to be. But like a lot of other kids, the first game that day, my entire family was there. My mom's brothers and sisters were there, my dad, my grandparents, and the last memory I have of my grandparents, my dad's parents being together was when they were both alive, was at a Magic City Classic.
So that was like a family reunion.
Oh, absolutely.
For you.
I mean, that's what it was. Parent mentioned Wednesday. My uncles got out there Tuesday. They took shifts. Actually got off work to set up the family tailgate. But it's, I don't know what my perspective of Birmingham would be without the Magic City Classic, because it was the one time that I felt the city embraced people that looked like me. And what I've since learned is that, there's just cultural nuances. But, when you go to an Alabama game, they're tailgating the same way. When you go to an Auburn game, they're tailgating the same way. And I think the Classic is a wonderful opportunity, much like the Iron Bowl has been, to bring communities together, to respect those cultural nuances. But one of the things we know how to do in Alabama is we know how to watch football. We know, that's what we do.
Absolutely.
So I just think it's a wonderful time for us to learn more about each other at a festive event. And every memory I have of the Classic is festive.
Good.
I feel like I've got to share my first experience too, because I'm a native Mobilian. I've been in Birmingham almost 20 years. So my first experience, I'm not going to date myself and put the year on there, but it was loading up in a Durango with like 8 guys, and we were hell bent on getting to the Classic. We may have had $100 between us, but we knew somebody that had a dorm at UAB, and stop me if this part kind of sounds familiar. We were gonna figure it out. And once we got here, phew, unbelievable. Didn't realize, okay, can't wear jerseys, needed better clothes, needed more change of shoes, needed all those things. And it completely opened my eyes to what Birmingham was, one as a city. And it became a part of my, kind of burned into my psyche that, you know what? If we leave Mobile, Birmingham, that's bigger, a little more opportunity, but it still feels like home. And I didn't realize I had that in common with over 150,000 plus people Tuesday through Sunday morning that felt the exact same way as me. So, you know, when you think about economic impact, and it's not just recycling the dollars, because again, when you talk about 34 to 36 states that are coming in, it's not just us hitting the registers again. It's other people that are pulling in, feeling that same way that I did for my first experience. You know, when we talk about this being a labor of love, and it's labor intensive, and anybody who probably saw me walking in, saw me with both phones, which joy was to leave them both at the table right now, but it's because there are people reaching out because this event matters. So everything about this that we do, again, our team continues to be able to lead. And when you talk about great partnerships, you know, we're going to thank Ralph for that great compliment, but we're gonna pay it forward and to say, Mayor Woodfin's team. And again, we had the highest amount of respect and still do for Mayor Bell and all the other administrations. You just didn't know what putting a different battery in the back of a machine like this can do. Completely get it. There are no better friends to events, sporting events, cultural conversations than we have currently with Mayor Woodfin and his entire team. They completely get it. They have helped. They got what we were trying to get to be able to help take this event and make it here. Our friends at Alabama Power, there's more to come from our teams at Ed Public, because again, he has such a good team. Small but mighty, but he has such a good team. They've done a brilliant job of hiring. Everybody's connected to that same mission, so more to come here. But yeah, these type of partnerships and relationships is what makes this event continue to be able to grow, because again, when you hear something that's 81 years old, you know, you can kind of get wah-wah. It's like, why should I? And I think it's more to Shell's point. It's like, why I will never miss it.
Can I make a quick point? And I know we got to run, but again, we recruit companies from all over the world to try to come to Alabama to set up operations or expand operations. And one of the things we leverage are, you know, the events that Alabama, you know, has, football games, Auburn has. The individual that that's the head of the company we're recruiting out of Cardiff Wells said, hey, what's the Magic City Classic? And when we were talking, well, we can get you to the Alabama game, Auburn game, or what's the Magic City Classic? And I kind of told him, he was like, I want to come to that. You know, I want to be a part of that. That's how we know things are changing. And because of the popularity of this event. And again, there's no reason why we can't use the Magic City Classic as a recruitment tool, just like we're using other. So.
Well, gentlemen, I think that we could probably go another 30 minutes, but unfortunately we are out of time. And I thank you so much for sharing your insights and how impactful the Magic City Classic is, not just from a fun perspective, but from an economic development perspective, and how it positively brings revenue to our great city of Birmingham. So I thank you so much for your time. And I'm not sure if we have any